Okay, again, good evening, everyone. We are now recording. This is March 15th, our March 2021 Journal Membership Meeting. We have a packed agenda as like every month, but I first want to thank you for taking time out of your schedules. You know, we had daylight savings time and there's more sunshine out, at least a little bit. So we won't keep you long tonight, but we're going to get right to business. With that being said, I'm going to ask on the vice chair and co-chair of our Religious Affairs Committee, Ms. Rosa Dunkley, to open us up in prayer, please. Thank you, Sister Rosa.
Heavenly Father, just once more again, God, we come and say thank you, Father God, for another day. Thank you, Lord God, for allowing us to gather tonight together, oh Father God, to do the business that's ahead of us, in front of us, Father God. God, we continue, Father God, to pray for those who are suffering from the coronavirus right now, Father God. But we're praying, Father God, for healing on their behalf. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister Rosa. And thank you, Pastor Davis. You know, your religious affair team is just knocking out the park. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to suspend with the rules. Typically per Constitution, there is a set order that we conduct business in the NAACP. However, we set our agenda and we're going to suspend the rules. So I'm asking for a motion. Don't everyone speak at once to suspend the rules.
I move that we suspend the rules.
Thank you, Mr. Jung. Is there a second?
Second,
Great. Who was that second?
Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Been properly moved and second that we suspend the rules for our agenda March 15th meeting. Are there any questions? Any questions? If so, put them in the chat. Any questions? There being none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed have the same right.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carried. Thank you. So, Madam Secretary, would you mind roll call briefly of the primary officers, elected officers?
Okay. When I call your
Elected
name, sure. When I call your name, please just indicate by saying present. First Vice President Kent Carter. First Vice President Kent Carter. Second Vice President Sharice Kearns.
Present.
Third Vice President Michael Heminger. Third Vice President Michael Heminger. Treasurer Roy Austin.
Present.
Assistant Treasurer Adriana Spain.
Present.
I'm the Secretary Wanda Younger. Assistant Secretary Dominique Jenkins. Assistant Secretary Dominique Jenkins. Executive Committee at Large Karen Nightingale. Executive Committee at Large Karen Nightingale. Executive Committee at Large James Younger.
Present.
Executive Committee at Large Simone Walker. Executive Committee at Large Simone Walker. At Large Member Carolyn Kane. At Large Member.
That's it, Madam Secretary, just those elected officers. Thank you very much. I think Mike came on while you were giving the roll call on officers. So Mike, do you want to consider yourself our president and accounted for, sir?
Good evening, Mr. President. I am present.
I know you're busy. Well, thank you all. Okay, we're a little bit ahead of schedule. I'm not going to sit here and run my lip tonight. We do have with us those of you that have registered. You should have received a copy of the agenda in advance. So with that being said, you see what's going on, the sequence of events, and you know me, we will stick to the agenda. So with that being said, we're a little bit ahead of schedule. But I just want to, again, thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. There's a lot of places you could be on a good third Monday, but you're here with us, the Arlington branch of the NAACP. And we consider each and every one of you that are on this call family, right? Family, we're all family. So again, I'm just so happy. We're at 63 folks here. We've been having a lot of meetings lately. I think our last meeting we had about 280. Thanks to the Education Committee, we were blowing up Zoom, but it's a good thing. So with that being said, I think with us tonight, we have a young gentleman who says he wants to be an elected official. And I said, is that really what you want to do? Now, but he's with us. He's he's family just like everyone on this call, but he has ambitions. And so with that being said, he knows he's going to have 3 minutes to say whatever he needs to say. Also, he knows, just like every other elected official on this call, the NAACP is a nonpartisan 501c organization at the national level, and at the local level, we're a 501c4 social justice organization. That being said, we do not endorse candidates, all right, at all. But he has something to say because he's running for office. And without further ado, we're going to spotlight him and give him exactly 3 minutes. So the floor is yours, Mr. Matt Rogers.
Hey, I'm going to jump right in as soon as I can. Thank you, everybody who signed up to be here tonight. I'm Matt Rogers. I've lived here since 2015. Before then, I was an organizer in Richmond. I worked in the legislative arena for a number of years now. Many of you know me maybe from being down there in Richmond or other related activities. I'm somebody who is lucky enough to have been married to Jasmine, who many of you had opportunity to meet, a lot smarter and a lot cooler than me. And I'm Mandela's dad. I'm also somebody who takes democracy seriously and isn't just a hobby for me. You'll see me online. You'll see me, if you were in college with me, you would see me on campus asking, are you registered to vote at your current address? But democracy only works when the voters have choices and when they're able to exercise the votes. This district, since I've lived here, we've not had a choice for who we send to the state legislature. And we elect Democrats here in Arlington, which is fantastic. I'm all about it. There are Democrats here that I've helped elect. But I don't believe that we should just be in the business of simply looking at party label like Mr. President referred to. A lot of the issues that we face as a Commonwealth and as a people around the country aren't just D or R. We are overwhelmingly Democratic here in Arlington. Not telling anybody anything new, but we haven't elected anybody that looks like me or a lot of folks on this call in quite some time. And, we need people who don't just see these things as academic exercises or something to talk about around election time. We need people who understand this stuff viscerally. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was canvassing while Black, had the police called on me. They realized, because I had been through this kind of thing before, knew how to remain calm and understand when I was under custodial arrest or not, asked if I was free to leave. But so many who look like us, like a lot of folks, and a lot of folks who are on this call don't look like that. But we know that these interactions don't always end well. Sometimes these people are strip searched. Some of them end up with a knee on their neck, and other ones who look are more lucky or less lucky. So thank you all for having me. If you want to hear more about the reasons why I'm in this race in terms of a legislative vision, go to friendsofmattrogers.com. Be happy to have you. Drop me a note, and thank you, Mr. President, for having me.
You are welcome, Mr. Rogers. So thank you. I believe you're also a member of the Arlington branch NAACP, so we thank you for your service. Sticking with the agenda, we are right on schedule here. This time we have carved out for the vice presidents to have some words. We do have all three vice presidents, two of the vice presidents on the call right now. The second vice president, Cherie Kearns, the third vice president, Michael Heminger. I don't have much to say. I was told a long time ago, let your actions speak louder than words. So I'm going to reserve a lot of this time tonight for the vice presidents to say a few words, if they may. And I'm going to start off. Kent, are you here? Because if not, I'm going to go straight right to the second VP. All right, Madam Vice President. Oh, well, it's good to be with. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Madam Secretary, please note the roll. Okay, Kent, the floor is yours, sir.
I appreciate it, Mr. President. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm so glad that everyone could make it to tonight's meeting that's open to the public. Just looking forward to tonight's presenters. Don't really have much to pass on, but that I'm excited continuing to fight for you guys. And I'm so grateful and thankful to everyone that helps out on a daily, weekly, and yearly basis. You guys are awesome. I'll yield my time, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Just made note, just check your screen names. We've had this issue in the past. We didn't have it the other night, but somehow I'm in the part of Arlington. The secretary started this up and my name keeps popping up on people who are joining the call. So just check your name and make sure you're not Julius Spain Sr. Okay, Madam Second Vice President.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have much to offer up tonight. I think a lot of what I'd have to share can be shared by Simone when the Ed Committee briefs out. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, Madam Second Vice President. Okay, Mr. Third Vice President, are you still with? No, there he is. I know you have something to say. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. President, and good evening, everyone. Just real quick, wanted to let everyone know that the branch is a part of the county's complete vaccine committee. I attended a meeting over the weekend, so there will be more information that'll be forthcoming. I'm also a local housing commissioner. I just want to let everyone know there's a lot going on with housing in Arlington. There's the Fair Housing Plan, there's missing middle, form-based code is under review. So there's so much going on. I want to encourage everyone to get involved. Reach out to me directly if you want to figure out how to do that. You can also attend a housing commission meeting, and we have a local housing committee here in the branch. So lots of ways to get involved, and there's lots of stuff going on behind the scenes. Really important to make sure that your voice is heard. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. And we are way above ahead of schedule. I did put in the chat, our next briefer is going to be with us in just a second, the Honorable Patrick Hope, but let me go ahead and say a few things. You heard the third VP, Madam Reverend Delisha Davis. We had our executive committee meeting yesterday, and she gave us some good news because the NAACP, as a partner, our Religious Affairs Committee has been working, helping register citizens in the community. So, Pastor Davis, you want to take a minute because we don't have you laid out on the schedule. You want to tell the audience about the good news from yesterday, the 100 and some odd registrations?
Sure, I will, Mr. President. We are grateful tonight. The Religious Affairs did have our first meeting today, and we had a few people that were there, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more. Because the branch is a partner with the Complete Vaccination Committee, and some of the churches are partners as well with Neighborhood Health, we've been able to do some things in the last 2 weeks. County officials reached out to me in reference to people of color being able to be vaccinated, sent us the appropriate information. I sent it out to as many of the faith community contacts that I had. There are 5 traditionally African-American congregations that are working specifically on this right now, but we have reached out to larger communities of faith as well. And as of yesterday, we had 117 persons that we registered and have also already received their first vaccination. As of today, we have 136 people that have been registered and vaccinated, and we have appointments for people all throughout this week. So if anybody that you know is having a difficult time setting up an appointment to be able to do so, I'm about to put the website into the chat right now. Instead of simply, you can still sign up for Virginia Department of Health, but also sign up with us because we have people in the respective churches that are making calls and setting up the appointments, and we can make sure that your people do get in. We want to change this narrative because people of color do want to get vaccinated, and we want to make sure that they are. Thank you for this opportunity to serve, Mr. President.
Well, that's great news, Pastor Davis, and you brought some cheerful noise into the Lord yesterday when you at the executive committee. But I will tell you this in the few minutes that we have, that the NAACP Arlington branch is not satisfied with the direction of the rollout for the vaccines. Okay, and there's a number of reasons behind that. We believe strongly that the government, it's a government program, but we've had lessons learned almost a year to prepare ourselves for this encounter. And it seems like we got somewhat left behind. Be that as it may, we can throw all the blame to the governor's mansion, but I think there was a lot of work we could have done right here. And this whole line about vaccine hesitancy within the Black community, you know, we need to dispel that myth, because I will tell you, there's a number of people of color in Arlington who have reached out to me, who've reached out to the NAACP, and it's just like, can't wait to get the vaccine. So when I hear folks try to talk about, well, there's hesitancy within the Black, no, it's not. We'll be able to measure that later on the other side when we have more vaccines than we possibly need. Right now, people really want to get vaccinated. And there's also something to say as I move around Arlington, you know, in places like Walter Reed and alike, you know, I'll be quite honest with you. I told the executive committee, you know, I went and got a shot last week, and, you know, it was about 3 Black folks there in South Arlington. Now, I'm not saying that happens every day, but it was just, it caught me. And I just realized, you know, what's going on here. And I'm not here to point the finger, but we know at the NAACP and across this nation, and we've heard it, it's in mass media, our communities of color are being left behind in this vaccine rollout. Make no mistake about it. It's happening, and it's happening willfully. We know enough about health disparities in our communities that we should have been in front of this, and we failed. So enough with excuses, we got to do more. And we're going to work with our elected leaders to hopefully do more. And that was great news, Pastor Davis, but in this case, this is life or death, and there's no excuses. All right. Okay, we're going to move on. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we put in the chat the PowerPoint. I'm going to see if I can get this right. Next up on our agenda is the Honorable Patrick A. Hope, Virginia House of Delegates. He represents the 47th District in Arlington. Patrick is a member of the NAACP, a good friend of the NAACP. We worked with him last year on a piece of legislation. I know the Education Committee did on literacy, and he championed that for us, but he's been involved with us a lot over the past year. We thank him for his service. So I'm not the most techie in the world, but I'm going to see if I can do the screen share. We did put his PDF in the chat, but give me a second. Pat, are you there? You about ready for us?
Yes, sir, Mr. President, I'm here.
Okay.
Are you able to pull it up?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now.
Well, while you're doing that, why don't I go ahead and get started?
I know you wanted to ask a good true politician. Take every minute you can, sir. Go ahead.
Well,
the floor is yours.
I don't want you to start the 10 minutes. I know how much you like to stick to the timeline.
Hey,
anyway, thank you.
You're a spotlight. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I know Delegate Lopez is here also to speak, and we sort of wanted to divide and conquer. The session was another spectacular session. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the issues that we focused on. I chair the Public Safety Committee, which oversees all of our gun violence prevention bills. It also oversees the police reforms that we passed in the special session in the fall. And I'm also a member of the Courts of Justice Committee, which I'm one of the senior members there. And that's where all of our, of course, criminal justice reform bills go through. I'm going to talk to you a little bit this evening about the gun violence prevention, a little bit about the budget, and a little bit about some of the successes that we had with criminal justice reform. But I got to tell you, when you look at a sequence of events from the 2020 session, the special session in the late summer and early fall, and what we've set to accomplish here in this session, I have to tell you, it's nothing short of historic and consequential in changing people's lives. The first thing I'll chat with you about is gun violence prevention, and just sort of give you a little overview of what we passed in the 2020 session there. I'll go very quickly. Universal background checks, extreme risks, protective orders, 1 handgun a month law, require gun owners to report lost or stolen firearms. That last bullet at the bottom is one that Arlington County took advantage of over the summer, was to allow them to prohibit guns in public spaces. Many people aren't aware of this, but you could go to a library, you could go to the government buildings, and you could carry your guns, but not anymore. And they took full advantage of that authority that we gave to them. I'm going to go to the next slide. So fast forward here to 2021, we wanted to build on that progress. We passed bills to ban firearms in polling places, banning firearms in the Virginia Capitol and state government buildings. And these are two areas that I think are all about democracy. People's constitutional rights to come and redress their government, constitutional rights to come and elect someone of their choosing, that people are being intimidated or threatened in any way. And we wanted to remove those threats in those two bills right there. Allowing more, don't go yet, yeah, there you go. Allowing more time for state police to conduct a background check. Hope Delegate Lopez talks about that bill. Preventing domestic abusers from possessing a firearm. Allowing school boards we don't have this here in Arlington, because Arlington School Board, they own the building that they conduct their meetings. But many school boards don't own the building. They maybe lease the building that they have their school board meetings in. And so this would allow them to ban firearms in that building as well too. I'll talk about the ghost gun and 3D printed guns later on, but that was a disappointment because that bill did not get passed. Go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so let's go into some of the criminal justice reforms. Again, building off of their successes for 2020, ending criminal charges for simple possession of marijuana and really decriminalizing it more than anything else. We're going from essentially from what's for simple possession from a $500 fine with possible jail time. And so we're totally reversing that from 2020. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So again, still looking at what we did in 2020, repealing the statute for suspending driver's licenses for non-payment of court debt. We had some pretrial reforms, changed the disorderly conduct to try to put an end to the school to prison pipeline, raising the felony threshold from $500 to $1,000. These are all things that we've been building on over the last year or two, and we're keeping building on some of these things. I anticipate that you'll see another effort to raise the felony threshold even higher, probably next session. Go to the next slide, please. And again, some of the things that we also did in 2020, the earned, and this was during special session, by the way, earned sentence credit for good behavior, compassionate release for parole, especially for those prisoners that are terminally ill or have a disability. Many of these people are bedridden, and to allow them to be eligible for parole. It doesn't mean that they get parole, it just means that they're eligible. A big one is equity in sentencing, given the option to defendants to have a jury or a judge to sentence them upon conviction. And one of the bills that I'm very, very proud of that I authored was ending racial profiling when it comes to traffic offenses. We took a look at the less serious traffic offenses that were primary offenses, and we changed them to secondary offenses. All these laws went into effect this month, March the 1st, as a matter of fact. And I think that pretextual stops bill is very consequential bill in criminal justice reform. Next slide. Police reform, again, during special session, banning no-knock warrants, banning chokeholds, prohibiting hiring officers that are fired or resigned to use of force. Training was a big one. That's a bill that I authored related to de-escalation and implicit bias for people with disabilities. We want to make sure that these, not only when you go get training in the academy, but for those people that have to have these ongoing, continuing credits, which every officer has to do. I believe it's 60 hours or maybe it's 40 hours every 2 years, to make sure that they continuously get training in the future. Funding mobile mental health crisis teams. This is the Marcus alert to try to embed mental health teams into law enforcement whenever there's a report for someone who's homeless or maybe has a serious mental illness. Instead of sending law enforcement in there with a bunch of police cars, you're sending a team that is the first responder to be those that are specifically trained to de-escalate the situation. And then civilian review boards is one that we passed in 2020. Little disappointment there because I know Arlington is doing their own civilian review board. It applies to police officers, the local police, but it doesn't apply to the sheriff's department. And we need to remove that because I think we need to expand it to include all law enforcement, including sheriffs. Demilitarization of police and some of that curriculum standardized training to make sure that it is standardized training when everyone goes into the academy, that everyone is getting the same minimum level, that standard of training. Next slide, please. Well, let's go ahead and fast forward to 2021. Again, I just wanted to paint a picture for you that we're trying to build off these successes. We abolished the death penalty, the first state in the South to do so. Virginia historically has executed more people than any other state in the country, disproportionately more African Americans by more than 3-to-1 margin over whites. And so we abolished the death penalty, sent that bill to the governor. Also, some other areas allowing evidence for people with mental illness in non-insanity cases. Under current law, the court only allows evidence for insanity to improve your intent, not to prove a mental disability. This law seeks to change it. So it's basically decriminalizing having an intellectual disability or developmental disability, autism, or serious mental illness. The other thing that we did, ending presumption against bail. Currently, if you are arrested, you, the individual that was arrested, have to prove why you should not be detained while awaiting trial. This goes, of course, contrary to what we all believe is that you're innocent until proven guilty. And so this is ending the presumption against bail. So someone has to prove otherwise. Next bullet there is ending the felony pendant larceny. This is basically a 3 strikes and you're out law for your third misdemeanor larceny. You could steal 3 soda pops and at separate times, and the third offense is clearly a misdemeanor, but it could count as a felony. And so we ended that. So many of these people that end up committing these types of crimes, these low-level crimes, are homeless, they have a serious mental illness, and there's no reason that they should be charged with a felony for their third offense. And then, of course, we create degrees of robbery. The current law has a mandatory 5 years for robbery, and we just created different degrees based on the seriousness of that offense. Next slide. Another bill has to do with expungement, and this is confusing because I think a lot of people don't try to understand the difference between expungement and sealing of records. In Virginia, in most states, there's a difference, but in Virginia, there has been no difference in how we treat expungement and sealing. So for Virginia law and the Virginia code, it's basically thought of the same way. And so what we do here for expungement is that automatic sealing of these 9 misdemeanor convictions, they are automatically sealed. For those misdemeanors that are up to the class 5 felonies, they will be sealed, but they have to go through a petition-based process. So that's really the difference here. You need a hire attorney and for these types of offenses in order to go through that process in order to get your conviction expunged. And of course, this takes effect until 2025. One of the reasons why we had to delay it so long is because we had to get our court records up to code. And so we did put some money in the budget for that purpose, but that's the reason for the delay there. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a big one, of course, is legalizing adult use marijuana legislation. And so some of the specific areas there is that we set up a new authority to license all retailers. And so it's a new cannabis authority that we're standing up. If you're used to the alcohol model, we use ABC to be the authority that oversees that process. We're setting up a brand new authority. We expunge of misdemeanors. And the regulatory process, in other words, when you would be able to start applying for licensing, is July of 2023. Now, I put this sentence here in red because I want to draw your attention to it. We, in my view, is a mistake, is that we tie sales to legalization. And all of that would start in July of 2024. And so the big question that a lot of members of my caucus have is, why are we waiting? Why are we going to allow criminalization of something that is going to be in 2024 to be legal? And so people can still be charged with a misdemeanor offense. And so why are we waiting so long? And so that's something that the governor has committed to working on. I don't know if it's going to be this July or next January or somewhere in between, but I know the governor's taken a hard look at that, and that's exactly what we need to be doing. But we should not be tying the two together. And a number of members of my caucus think that it's waiting too long. The revenue is really real, and it's things that I think is really important that we not lose sight of here, because the revenue can be brought in and done some real good for individuals. 40% would go through pre-K and at-risk communities, 30% for workforce training by over-policed areas, 25% for substance abuse prevention. That's a key one because especially for people underage, and that top bullet point that I didn't mention is that's a real important point, is that for those people that are underage that are caught with simple possession, what are we going to do to them? We don't want to criminalize underage. And so emphasizing more education and prevention type treatment is the path that we're going to go. Now, most, if not all of this needs to be reenacted. And of course, that is an issue for a lot of us here, because what happens if something happens to the House of Delegates that it turns Republican, or something happens in a governor's race before 2024? So that's all an important issue as well too. I regret that we have to reenact a lot of these things, but we are moving in a path towards legalization by 2024. And I think governor's going to take a look at a lot of these ways to improve the bill. Next slide, please. Okay, so shifting gears over to the budget. Obviously, as you know, the pandemic has been harmful for a lot of people, but our budget prioritized those that have been hit the hardest by COVID-19. The Virginia economy has been quite good. I know not everyone has experienced how good the economy is, but the majority have, and as a result, our budget has been a beneficiary of it. In fact, the governor recognized, actually, in I believe in last week's news, they recognized about $1 billion, that money that they can go towards COVID relief, or going towards our budget. And so we did that. $6.8 billion is money that we're going to receive from the law that the federal government just passed for COVID relief. About half, a little bit more than half of it will go to the states, and the remaining portion of it will go to localities that have struggled from COVID-19. So Virginia is in a good position financially to continue to target funding towards people that need it the most. Next slide, please. And so here's some areas that we've taken our first stab at. As my earlier slide indicated, we're going to have to come back into special session to figure out what to do with that $6.8 billion that have come from the feds. And I think this gives you a sense of some of the things that we will be targeting. There are pay raises in there for teachers and state employees, pay raises in there for state police, a significant amount of money put in there for K through 12. Particularly, I think is really helpful as school counselors. I know it's been important to NAACP and me as well, is to try to divert some of the money that we have for SROs. This is a great opportunity to do that, is for school districts to take a look at that and go ahead and push that money to school counselors. Puts more money in there for healthcare, for DD waiver slots and things like that, and directs a massive amount of money that are both state and federal funds to standing up COVID vaccination sites. Next slide, please. Massive amounts of money for housing as well too. $100 million for broadband in particular, but $125 million for the Virginia Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I think Delegate Lopez is going to speak about that. More money for transportation. Judicial is a big issue as well too. We are going to expand the size of the Court of Appeals from 11 judgeships right now to 17 judgeships. And those will all be appointees by the majority party. And we have no representation currently from Northern Virginia. And you can expect that that's going to change after we get done with appointing judges, which should take place, I think, in the matter of a couple of months. We're going to start interviewing judges and picking some really good folks there to put on their bench to make sure that those defendants get a automatic right of appeal, if necessary, going to the Court of Appeals. Next slide, please. Let me just conclude, because I do think my time is getting close up. This was another consequential session. Again, I look at this as a journey that we've been on since the 2020 session, the special session, and today. There were a few disappointments that I have to mention, and that's the legalization of marijuana. We need to detach the set legalization date with sales, and I hope that we can do that. Mandatory minimums was a huge disappointment. That is something that the House passed a version that was about 70 or 80% of all mandatory minimums would be repealed. The Senate wanted all of them to be repealed. and that bill failed in conference, and that was a major, major disappointment. I already mentioned civilian review boards, that needs to be expanded to include sheriffs. Qualified immunity, another issue that has also failed to pass, and I've already mentioned ghost guns. I know I'm at my time, so I'll stop there, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate Patrick Hope, for a very thorough update on the recent legislative session. I will tell you that our Political Action Committee will be in contact with both you and your team to discuss a little bit more. We do a lot of our work outside of our meetings. And so we thank you for your service and thank you for giving us again, very thorough update. The PDF has been shared with everyone on the call. I know it was sent out prior to, so we really, again, thank you. We know it's not easy down there and you have to work with your colleagues, but you guys and ladies accomplished a lot in this past session. So hats off to each and every one of you. So next we have the Honorable Alfonso H. Lopez, Virginia House of Delegates. My neighbor here in Penrose represents the 49th District in Arlington, which includes parts of Eastern Fairfax County. Alfonso, are you on?
I'm right here. Hey, JD, Mr. President.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
All right. So, Alfonso, the floor is yours. You are spotlighted, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody. And thank you for your time tonight. What Patrick talked about was exhaustive. It was quite possibly a huge amount of stuff, a huge amount of bills, a huge amount of policies that have fundamentally changed Virginia. And he only touched the tip of the iceberg. All right. We have fundamentally changed Virginia in 2 years. We have, arguably, not only was 2020 an historic year in terms of how Virginia changed, but this past session, 2021, and the special session over the summer were arguably, combined the most significant legislative session in modern Virginia history. We have now moved Virginia with our progressive legislation to being on the front lines, not just in the South, but in the nation, on nationwide efforts regarding criminal justice reform, immigrant rights, environmental protection. So let me just try to touch upon everything that sort of Patrick didn't talk about, because it's rather extensive. I'm not going to get into the weeds a lot, but I will just sort of hopefully touch upon a lot of the high level things. I joked a while back and I said that, if you give us the opportunity to take the majority in 2019, we will pass historic legislation, and the work of a lifetime will be the work of a few afternoons. And I wasn't joking. And my colleagues, we were not joking. We did it. And so, I also tell a story that in the second Thursday of last session, we passed in one day, 7 of our 8 major sensible gun violence prevention bills, payday lending reform, and no excuse absentee voting on the floor of the House of Delegates. If any one of those bills had passed in my previous 8 years in the House of Delegates, it would have taken up weeks of media coverage. It would have been a focus of our advertising. It would have been a focus of our messaging. On that day, it was just Thursday. And we would pass for the last session, over the summer, this session, it was just Thursday every day, because we would pass just considerable number of progressive legislation that fundamentally changed Virginia for the better. So just the tip of the iceberg. Emergency assistance for small businesses, a state-based Medicaid exchange for the first time ever, raising the minimum wage in Virginia to $15 per hour by 2026. And everyone should know, to $9.50 by May of 2021. All right, now it's not fast enough in my opinion. I think I wanted it to be faster, but we are moving finally towards catching up to other states. appropriations dollars. I was proud of working with the former Bonder and Amanda Johnson Center and helping them get $100,000 until the COVID-19 unallotment of all of our funds. But I'm committing to work in the future with bridges to independence as well. My legislation on driver's license suspensions for inability to pay. 660,000 people in Virginia did not have a driver's license because they weren't able to pay their court fees and fines. And what is that? That's a modern day debtor's prison. And what does that mean? That means that, you have to make a choice. Do you continue running afoul of the law by not driving to work, or do you go to work so you can pay off your court fees and fines? It's absurd. I was proud of the fact we were able to, get rid of that modern day debtor's prison. We passed a raft of immigration bills that, protected folks in our community in South Arlington who were afraid to talk to the police because they were concerned that if they talked to the police that and they were undocumented, they themselves or a loved one, if they were even the victim or witness of a crime, that they themselves or a loved one would get caught up in the ICE detention process. Now that's no longer the case. I passed the legislation to finally address de-icing Virginia. We passed, in-state tuition for our Dreamer and DACA kids last year. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud of the fact that, now thousands of children and students who, could have been forgotten or could have been told that they didn't have a pathway to their education now have one. We fundamentally secured our social safety net in terms of temporary assistance for needy families and SNAP funding, and actually took advantage of federal programs that Republicans had simply ignored for decades. We raised the felony threshold from $500 to $1,000. I had a bill to actually make it go to $2,000, but eventually my bill was incorporated into $1,000. It needs to be higher to be on par with other states. We passed the Virginia Clean Economy Act that took us from one of the worst states in America to one of the best states in America in terms of addressing climate change. We passed the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative that helps us get there for climate change mitigation. We actually finally addressed climate change in the state DEQ's plans of action, and environmental justice. Finally addressed environmental justice. We have a plastic bag tax that's now in place, as well as a hazardous waste site inventory that I was proud to pass. We finally got rid of the ugly, antiquated, slightly sad attempt to protect Confederate monuments and war monuments around the state, because localities should make those decisions for themselves. We finally overturned that in 2020. We got collective bargaining for our public employees, so that now we can actually take those baby steps to addressing the, evening the playing field between workers and business. We addressed project labor agreements. We reversed the Comstock rules so that project labor agreements could be a part of our public, large public projects. They put in place worker protections and wage theft protections. We passed the Equal Rights Amendment, and we actually did something basic like, enabling asthma inhalers to be in schools. And I don't know, when you buy a house, maybe there should be a lead pipe warning if you have lead pipes in the home. On top of that, in 2021, during the special session, I had a piece of legislation that passed as a part of our criminal justice reform efforts on pattern and practice of constitutional violations by local and state police. And basically, it enables the Attorney General to finally, after years of not being able to do this, if there's a pattern of excessive force, a pattern of constitutional violations by a local police department or a state police department in Virginia, the Attorney General is now empowered to look into and investigate and prosecute those police departments. I was very proud of the fact that my legislation created that. And then something that I think a lot of folks know about, my legislation created the Virginia Affordable Housing Trust Fund in 2013. And we took it from $0 to $7 million in 2013 to, as Patrick mentioned, $125.7 million now, as of right now in the budget we just passed. And that's wonderful because it helps people address housing inequality and homelessness, and it helps us build new affordable housing units around the country, around the Commonwealth. Here's the thing. We also got $524 million from the federal government through the CARES Act as a backstop for all of the eviction protection programs we have in the state. And I'm very proud of the fact that we worked with the governor to create the rental and mortgage assistance program, which enabled us to put in place a program after the eviction moratoriums were moved through, so that evictions would be less likely to happen because of all of this federal and state money. And the fact is that the Virginia Affordable Housing Trust Fund was used as the backstop for all of these programs. So what does that mean? That means that in 2020, in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, fewer people were evicted in Virginia than in 2019. So during the pandemic, because of all of the programs we had in place, thousands of families who were on the cusp of being evicted in the past were not evicted during the middle of the pandemic. When it would have been tragic that it had done, but that it had happened. We are, JD, how much time do I have? Because I'm the majority whip of the House Democratic Caucus. And if you let me talk, I will not stop. So how much time do I have?
But you know, we were over time. Is our Commonwealth Attorney? We'll definitely have you back, Alfonso.
All right, I'm sorry, but long story short, everyone, and I appreciate the 10 seconds more. It goes back to the first thing I said. We have, I think, truly fundamentally changed the face of Virginia from protecting families and keeping Virginians healthy, addressing COVID-19, rebuilding our economy, creating a more inclusive Virginia, reforming the Commonwealth's criminal justice system, improving education, and making democracy stronger by expanding voting rights and actually having the first Virginia has the first Voting Rights Act in the South. And so we have fundamentally done what you asked us to do. We said we would do certain things as a Democratic caucus, and we delivered. We said we'd pass these things, and we did. And so thank you for standing with us. And it's an honor to be here with you tonight. And I look forward to any questions you might have in the future. And thank you, Mr. President, and everyone for being such vibrant parts of our community.
Thank you, Delegate Lopez, for all that you have done and what you will continue to do, not only representing the 49th District, but also the Commonwealth of Virginia. With that being said, and again, like we said to Delegate Hope, our Political Action Committee will be in contact with you and your team here in the near future. Thank you again for attending. Okay, without further ado, tonight we have no stranger to the NAACP. I think I looked at her record and her bio on the screen, and it says something about back in the day she used to be part of the Criminal Justice Committee at the NAACP, but that's just what's out there on the internet. All of you know this young lady, Parisa Dehghani-Tafti, Commonwealth Attorney, represents Arlington County and the City of Falls Church. I just put in the chat box a copy of her presentation for tonight. Good evening, Parisa. Thank you for being with us. We know that you are very busy, so without any further ado, I'm gonna spotlight you and get your slides up, okay?
Hello, everybody. It's been, I think, a year since I last spoke to you all as a group, back in the before times when we were in person. So thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Obviously, a lot has happened since the last time I was here. I will try to keep it short because I definitely prefer conversation to just listening to myself speak. So Julius, if you don't mind advancing to the next slide, please. So when I came into office, I had sort of three fundamental goals, and you can see what they are. We've had a great team that we've built. We started with sort of very deep questionnaires for the folks that were there, and to sort out who we wanted to keep. We've hired some really amazing people, including former defense attorneys, including former Capitol attorneys, and some really, really top-notch prosecutors from other areas. We have tried to establish trust and rapport with stakeholders, including the police, the sheriff, DHS, the defense bar, the courts, OAR, and have been building bridges continuously and constantly, and fulfilling campaign promises. And for those of you who get the newsletter, which I think Izzy is on this call, she is primarily the the force behind it, you will know that we have been doing a lot, and we've been announcing a lot of things every single month or every couple of months. And I'm going to go through just a tiny fraction of what we've done, because I could bore you all for 2 hours. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I always talked about 4 core functions: priorities and policies, community engagement, advocacy, and management of the office. If you go to the next slide, we can talk about some of the things that we've done in terms of priorities and policies within the office. I want to start with restorative justice, because it is, to me, one of the most important ways in which we can transform the criminal legal system, and to make it more fair, and to make it more fair in a way that doesn't replicate the mistakes that we made in the past. And the sort of core original mistake being the way that we have otherized really Black people, and the way that we have created a false myth about Black dangerousness. And I see restorative justice as a way to really start unraveling that myth. Some of the other things that we've done are, and in terms of restorative justice, excuse me, I was on the working group all last year when we came up with the strategic plan. And we have a pilot program, Restorative Arlington Youth and Young Adult Program, for 16 to 24-year-olds that are charged with serious crimes that would result in detention. And we are actually in the implementation phase of Restorative Arlington. We helped launch the behavioral health docket, which is available before plea and after plea. And the idea of that is to give folks wraparound services who have mental and behavioral health issues, so that we don't end up criminalizing mental illness. We started, related to that, we started the Arlington Disability and Justice System Coalition, which we're trying to use to address the needs of folks with intellectual and developmental disability at all stages of the criminal legal system, with a focus on prevention. And we created a conviction review unit. It's been functioning actually for a solid year, but we announced it in our last newsletter. And the idea of it is to work with ACPD and other stakeholders, including nonprofits, to conduct thorough investigations and evaluations of wrongful conviction claims. And so it's about innocence claims, but it's also, we're in the process, for example, of reviewing 31 cases in which a DNA analyst who had testified improperly about DNA mixtures. We received information about 31 cases in which she had been involved. And so we are undertaking a thorough review of those cases, not just for innocence, but also just to determine what effect that testimony had on a person's conviction. And we overhauled our discovery process. Defense attorneys are no longer required to come into our office and take notes on files. Instead, we provide open electronic discovery, meaning emailing discovery when it's appropriate. And we have multimedia duplicator machines also that allow for quick duplication of voluminous files. And doing this has actually sped up the resolution of some serious cases, which is exactly what I hoped it would do. Can you go to the next slide, please? In terms of community engagement, I was on the PPG and attended almost all of those meetings, along with Kent and some other folks on the NAACP. We do have the newsletter so that we are constantly keeping the community updated. I'm here and I'm happy to go anywhere anyone asks. And we created, we redid the Operation Safe Station to remove barriers to treatment. In the past, Operation Safe Station was operating out of the magistrate's office, which really discouraged participation of the service. For 2 years, not a single person took part in it. And the idea of the program is supposed to be where if you have an addiction issue, you can come with your drugs, get rid of them, but also ask for treatment. And we helped to update its policies and move it to fire stations and try to make it a safer place and a place where people would be less likely to be questioned and more likely to actually seek out treatment. Next slide, please. Oh, and then excuse me. We also started our community advisory board. So we have a 16-member board, and the purpose of it is to, really have a two-way communication between members of the community, representing sort of a wide variety of constituencies and opinions, but also to really help build up programs and policies that are really sort of deeply rooted in what the community identifies as its wants and needs. And we're focusing on restorative justice, we're focusing on mental health and diversion, we're focusing on data and equity impacts, and community engagement as well. Okay, so now you can go to the next slide. I promised that I would use my voice to advocate for things that were important, and Delegates Hope and Lopez talked about some of the things, and I was really excited that many of the things that they mentioned were things that I supported, including the criminal justice reform for youth, raising the age that people can be tried as an adult, bringing in the possibility of parole after serving 20 years if you were sentenced as a juvenile, and removing disorderly conduct as a charge for things that happen on school property or at school events. Obviously, cannabis reform, something near and dear to my heart, is making the writ of actual innocence available to people who pled guilty, because we know that 10% of the people who've been exonerated by DNA in this country actually pled guilty. And so it gives them a chance and a way to get into court to challenge their sentences. I supported the informed juries in early 2020, and also the ability to have judge sentencing in the special session. In this past session, I supported FOIA reform so that people could have access to investigative files. I supported death penalty abolition, the abolition of mandatory minimums, and expunging and sealing records. Next slide, please. In terms of managing the office, I talked a little bit about sort of who we'd hired, but when we came in, and Pamela can attest to this if she's on the call, we had a server that was in a closet that was pretty much full, so full that our computers were crashing every day. And it turns out that it was totally hackable too. So we overhauled our system, moved our system into the cloud, made it secure so that it can't be hacked, and really dragged the office into the 21st century. We still have work to do, but it's allowed us to telework and to keep up a really high level, move some of our constituent services online, and to maintain a high level of responsiveness and service to the community. One of the most important things we did, and this was very important to me, is we implemented vertical prosecution. And you're wondering, what on earth does that mean? Essentially, it means that one case goes to one prosecutor and stays there, barring some sort of, like maternity leave or people moving on to different teams and things like that. And the reason why that's important is because it allows us to get discovery out more quickly. It allows us to communicate more effectively and early with victims and witnesses and police officers. And it means that, if you're a victim or a witness, you don't have to keep saying the story over and over again if there's a continuance in the case or if something happens. There's no institutional knowledge lost, and people really have ownership of the cases, which this was not how the office was set up before, except in the most serious cases. This is how we're set up now, so that we can be more responsive and more efficient. And we are changing performance measures. In the past, And this becomes clear every budget cycle. What was counted was number of court cases, number of convictions, number of appeals that were filed, and looking at that, that's pretty perverse in terms of incentives. And so I not only asked for legislation that would change the sort of statewide performance measures so that we're not only counting felony prosecutions and felony convictions, but so that we take account the other work that we do. And some of the other work that we do that doesn't ever get any kind of attention is, for example, we do a lot of investigation. Even though we don't have investigators, we work with the police on a lot of investigations, and those may or may not end up in actual charges. But nonetheless, they take up a lot of time. We also do diversion, and the drug court and the behavioral health court. Those things require a lot of time and a lot of energy. And it's time and energy that we want to put in. It's just that we want the county and the state to recognize that kind of work and to reward it. And internally, we have not only sort of changed the sort of zeitgeist where nobody celebrates when you get a sentence. We all sort of recognize the gravity of that, but we also have, incentivized things like coming up with creative solutions to cases and trying to really take a more holistic approach and creating things like the Developmental Disability Coalition. Next slide. And this is the last slide, I promise. Equity and anti-racism. This was very important to me, and it was the entire reason I ran. And what we have done in the time that we have been there is started getting training from various anti-racism courses, including OARs. We have brought in people to train us in terms of, sort of like trauma and race, and how law enforcement reads trauma behaviors as dangerous behaviors, and how to sort of account for some things that look like, for example, consciousness of guilt in some contexts, but really could just be trauma behaviors, or things that look like aggressive stances, but are really ways of metabolizing anxiety, particularly for communities and kids who've experienced trauma. We are partnering with Motion for Justice, which is an offshoot of the Vera Institute, to actually train our prosecutors, sort of like subset of prosecutors on anti-racism prosecution, and to train them on how to obtain and analyze data, and really, workshop our policies and with actual cases to make sure that we are looking at things through an anti-racist lens. And with that, because it is the most important to me, I will end this presentation and ask what you all want to hear about.
Well, thank you, Commonwealth Attorney. Let me get this screen here set. Of course, we have questions. And I'm going to start off with the first one. We have a few minutes here. There's been a number of issues here in Arlington, many of which you perhaps are not at liberty to discuss with us in this audience. But may I ask, I'm familiar with what your platform and what you ran on. We're conducting a study right now, a work group on SROs in the school system. And you had concerns prior to running for office about SROs as well. And I just want to get your thoughts today on SROs and their effectiveness based on data, what you've seen over time?
I don't think my position has actually changed very much. What I would rather see in schools is counselors. If we're going to have SROs, because I know that the community is split on them, what I would like to see is all of those SROs trained in restorative justice and mediation. But, you know, I think that, you know, we can be safe without a huge amount of police presence in our schools. And but I do think if there's going to be, like, they need to be in plain clothes, they need to have certain kinds of training, and really should be like a special core of people that sort of don't do normal police work.
Sure. Thanks for answering that. And we don't have, I want to ask the same question to my good friends, Pat and Delegate Hope and Delegate Lopez. How do you feel about SROs in the schools?
I mean,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I actually had legislation on addressing SROs in schools back in 2020 that I worked on with Elizabeth Guzman. And we actually incorporated our language into the bill that was finally passed, that was carried by Jay Jones and Skylar Van Valkenburg. The idea being that it definitely needs to be studied, but we went further in our initial bill. We were actually trying to address the issue itself, because just as Parisa Tafti was saying, there is a disagreement in the community, but I know where I stand on this, and I think it's something that we need to, slowly phase out.
You're saying phase out over time?
No, I'm saying not do as much as we're doing right now. I mean, it depends on the county, depends on the community.
So for Arlington County, okay, all right. I mean, we're not going, I appreciate that. Pat, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, from an Arlington's perspective, I think this is a good time to hit the pause button and ask ourselves, what are the goals and objectives of having an SRO? And do we have that same need? Are there other priorities? For example, you heard in the budget that we put in more money towards school counselors. Is it better to have school fund using those resources for school counselors? I've got Arlington County Police who tell me they've got all these vacancies, and they have probably about 18 or 20 SROs in our schools. That's an opportunity to shift some responsibilities if there's not a belief that we need to focus on that. From a state level, I will tell you, it's about $5 million in our budget. And there has been an effort, there was at least 2 budget amendments put in this year in the House, Delegate Corey and Delegate Bourne, to try to shift that money to more at-risk youth. In my opinion, that's a much better use of that money than it is our SOs. But certainly for Arlington, it's a good opportunity to ask yourselves, what are we trying to accomplish with this program? And are there greater needs?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And another way to do it, I'm sorry, JD, is also counselors. We seem to think about putting more money to counselors as well. Right.
Yeah. So I really appreciate y'all leaning in on this, because this is a conversation that the community is having right now. Many of you know there's a work group with 48 citizens on it, right? And they're going to report out later in the year. So I think it's very important that we only hear from our leaders, but we're also going to hear from this work group and those subcommittees, because, we can go on and talk for hours about how police officers came into existence and why they were put perhaps in the school system here in Arlington. And, a lot of people believe strongly that having police officers in the school system make the schools safe, but there's an argument on the backside of that, right? So I just want to get your thoughts, and we don't have much time, and I appreciate you saying a few things. Parisa, there was a comment here that someone asked about restorative practices in APS. You got any comments on that? I mean, it wasn't really a question. Cherie, do you want to go into some more detail about that?
Yeah, no, I don't know that Parisa is involved. And I just wanted to know what the status of the implementation of restorative practices in APS was. And I don't know if Parisa, if that's a question for you or someone else.
I mean, it really is probably better for someone else, but I'm on the implementation steering committee for all 3 areas. but my focus, I think rightly, has been on the legal system, because that's the area that I know the best, and it's an area that I actually have a say over.
Thanks, Cherie. I will go to another question that I have. Just want to get your thoughts, Parisa. And thank you for uplifting and telling us a little bit about Restorative Arlington and the way ahead. I know I've spoke to Kamiko just a few days ago, and we're going to try to. I think there's some vacancies there on the steering committee. NAACP want to be a part of all good things here in Arlington. But as you're aware, we've had a couple of incidents in the past 6 months here in Arlington that the NAACP has spoken out pretty loudly about. We go back to October when a Black man, of course, was died in the custody of the Arlington County Sheriff. And then to my knowledge, here it is March, and I don't think the family still knows the cause of death. We also know that we had an individual that was racially profiled, and that's the opinion of the Arlington branch NAACP and many others in the county. Do you, if there's, we appreciate your slides and what you presented. Do we still have an issue between the community and trust in the police, in your opinion? Is there some trust issues still there?
I clearly there are. But, and, in terms of the case with the photographer, I had really hoped that the parties would engage in a restorative process, and had suggested that to you and to the other folks that were involved, because there were things that went wrong in that situation, but there were also some things that that went right. And I think that the parties understanding each other and understanding what each other's perspective and experience is would have been really helpful. And I would still support a restorative process for that. In terms of the death in the jail, that is being investigated, and I'm actively involved in the investigation. Obviously, I can't comment on it. If and when there are charges or there aren't, I am still going to be constrained because I can't discuss open cases. And there are very strict ethical rules about not making any kind of public comment that would influence a jury if a case came to trial. And so, while I would like to just, share everything, I have very strict constraints about what I can and can't say. But I have spoken to you, Julius, and Kent, about the situation, and I am very keenly aware of where we are as a society and the need for independence in this investigation.
Thank you for those comments, and good. I do appreciate your candidness and just as much as possible sharing with us your thoughts, and by no way, shape, or form in this place we're trying to kind of put you in one of those situations but just to be told, it's a very emotional and it's on the thoughts and it's on the hearts and minds of many folks here in Arlington, and I put myself in the place of the families of those who have either been profiled in the case, died. And I know for certain in certain parts of America, justice would perhaps already have been served, or we would have got down to it. And when we're dealing with elected officials, whether it's the county or the school board, for example, it's not really excuses, but everyone proceeds with caution, right? I'm like, listen, someone died, and this is the 5th Black man that's died in Arlington in 5 years. Let's wake up and smell the coffee. Something's going on. Matt Rogers, you have a question, and I'm gonna let you do that. Then we got to move to our committees. Thank you, Parisa. Matt has a question for you. Matt Rogers.
Yeah, very quick. Thank you, Parisa, for all your support on all the important things that we need to do here in Arlington. I had a question about cannabis policy, something that's very important to me. In terms of pure numbers, and I know everyone hates those kind of questions, apologize everybody. Everybody hates the kind of quantifiable questions, but in the year before you were elected, how many cannabis cases, how many possession cases were prosecuted? And then what about last year?
So I don't know how many, but what I can say is that it was the most frequently occurring charge.
Oh.
So I don't know off the top of my head, but in the years prior to 2020, it was the most frequently occurring charge. And unfortunately, 57% of the people who were charged with simple possession of marijuana were Black. And so it was also a charge that disproportionately affected Black people. What we did and when we came in is with very few exceptions, except for where there was a public safety issue, we stopped prosecuting those cases. And we have been put through the ringer by the courts for doing that, including having to write briefs in cases that would never have seen briefs in the prior administration, including having to file all kinds of things that never were asked for in prior administrations. And so there definitely has been some resistance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank
but
you.
I don't back down. So
Well,
I'm a troublemaker who doesn't back down.
And Matt, you're doing a good job shaking that baby. Keep up the good work. All right, we're going to move in real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Parisa, for being with us. I'm going to take you off spotlight, but we really appreciate you. And you're welcome anytime. We're going to be in conversation with you, from this point on. You know how we do. So appreciate you coming out tonight. And your team, Izzy, Pam, and the whole crew there down at the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. With that being said, you have your agenda, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go through this. The executive committee met last night. We had a good conversation. Some of the reports were shared with you in advance. But real quick, is Jacob Williams on? And before we go there, I want you to see, like tonight I have the screensaver up, background. People say, hey, Spain, you be doing, but I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, it's not about JD Spain. It's not about, one person in the Arlington branch NAACP. It's about those volunteers behind me, many of whom are on this call, and they are the ones that's making it happen. So we've been able to galvanize and bring together a great group of leaders in the community, and they're all about civil rights and social justice. So stand by. We appreciate it, and thank each and every one of them when you see them or you chat with them. Jacob Williams, are you on the call? Community coordination? Okay, we'll move on. I don't think Maya's here with us. Reverend David, excuse me, I'm on the wrong agenda. I'm looking at executive committee. Economic development, Megan Brew, are you with us?
That is me. I'm here, JD. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Megan, please, no more meetings.
So as JD alluded to, my committee has done a significant number of stakeholder meetings as we just were founded or revitalized, perhaps we should say, kicked off again in January. We are connecting on the last Sunday of this month, March 28th at 7:30, so that we can reflect on those meetings, start charting a path forward in terms of how we want to get involved and advocate in Arlington. I am also grateful, JD, this will be a little bit easier to consider, but I am connecting with a couple of my fellow committee chairs just to see where there might be some cross-pollination between our work. So again, just trying to stay unified as one NAACP. But I will drop my email in the chat if you're interested in joining. We are always welcoming new members to the committee. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
I'll toss it to the next, JD.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and again, for those, look at their reports. You'll see some of the work that they've been doing in between meetings. And Megan, thank you for all that you do. We're going to move on to environmental and climate justice. We have another rock star, Gabrielle Cantor.
Hi there. We had our meeting a week ago, our monthly meeting. We had some great discussion about a few different things. You can read the summary in the report, but basically we talked about the Energy Masters program in Arlington, which is focused on affordable housing and winterizing, saving money and saving energy for people in affordable housing. So we're talking about how we could move forward with that. And then we also talked about the tree canopy and how we want to move forward in speaking with Arlington County leaders about what we want to see in development in our county. So that's about the summary, but there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that's also happening. So feel free to message me or contact me if you want to join or just find out what we're up to.
Okay, thank you, Gabrielle. Next, we have Kellen. Are you on? Kellen and Tim and Mike with our housing trio.
Yep, thanks, JD. So for the Housing Committee, we met earlier this month and we heard from tenant representation at the Serrano, which is a AHC apartment. They've had ongoing issues related to sort of unsafe housing conditions, ongoing maintenance issues, and sort of mistreatment by the management. AHC has taken steps to resolve some of those issues, but more work remains to be done. So we're continuing to communicate with the tenants and with AHC to see how we can help move that forward and resolve those issues. Also, quick update, the Fair Housing Plan that we submitted a letter to the county board and county leadership on, I think it was in January. The county has decided to push back the deadline to finish that plan by a year, which is good news. It gives us time to work with them to ensure that we can have a plan and strategy within Arlington that actually addresses segregation and the disparities between white and Black residents and other residents of color, because the current plan that the county drafted doesn't do any of those things. And so we're looking forward to continuing to work with the county and advocate for that. We're also working to identify our priorities for 2021. So we've narrowed down the high-level list to gentrification, affordable housing, and fair housing. And right now we have a survey out to the members of the committee to identify particular policy ideas that we want to advocate at both the state level as well as within Arlington County to make progress on these issues. So we invite everyone to attend our meetings. We meet the first Tuesday of each month. And we are looking forward to doing some really great work to advance equity within housing in Arlington County and actually in the state as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Kellen. Really appreciate that. Since we have some time, I will say, Kellen mentioned the Serrano and our apartments, and there's some other apartments down in South Arlington that we are looking at. We know for certain that there's been, I'm not going to call it mismanagement at this point, but there's been some failures across the board as it relates to tenants and management of these affordable housing units. So, you know, we're looking at all of that here at the NAACP and our housing committee. And I will tell you that there's probably going to be, and there's no probably in it, there's going to be some reports here in the near future. So Kellen, Tim, Mike, thank you for all that you're doing. Mike, you have anything you want to add? I know you're sitting on the Housing Commission for the county. Anything you want to add?
Nope, I think Kellen did a great job talking about everything we're working on. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, we're going to move on to our Political Action Committee. And I think the chair, Jamie Abrams, is going to brief tonight.
Yes, I want to highlight 2 upcoming events and 1 volunteer opportunity for our general membership. First, we have an upcoming debate tomorrow night. We are co-sponsoring along with the Virginia People's Debate, a 3-part series, and the final part is tomorrow night featuring our gubernatorial candidates. And so that debate is at 7 o'clock. And Megan, the Political Action Co-Chair, is dropping in the chat right now the information to register for that debate. So I hope you'll consider attending. It's a number of progressive organizations focusing on racial justice, economic justice, environmental justice, and gender justice that are co-sponsoring that debate. Second opportunity to get involved, we're also participating in an upcoming voting rights panel put together by Rock Spring Congregational Church, and that is on March 28th at 12 o'clock, and it features a number of groups working on voting rights and voting access, and it's open to the public, and we would warmly welcome you to come hear about federal federal and state developments in voting rights and voter access. And then the third and last item, an opportunity to get involved for the general membership. If you are interested, the Political Action Committee has collaborated with Reclaim Our Vote. So there's a national law, Help America Vote Act, that requires states to manage their state voter registrations, and that management process pushes voters off of the rolls, and that can particularly and disproportionately impact communities of color and young voters. And so we are working with Reclaim Our Vote in a statewide postcard campaign to alert voters that their names may have been removed from the voter rolls to try to preserve their voter registration and their voting rights. So we have 1,000 postcards, and we are warmly inviting any members. They're packed in 20 and 30. That is a very manageable amount. If you have young children, school-age children, that you want to promote civic participation, this is a great opportunity. There's a script and a sticker, and so it's very engaging and accessible. So drop me a note in the chat if you are interested in getting involved, and we'll give you the distribution information. We meet on the first Mondays of every month at 6:30, and we warmly welcome others to attend our meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Great job. Great presentation there. Get involved with our Political Action Committee. 'Tis the season. There's a lot going on. And Jamie, along with Megan and a host of other volunteers, are really doing amazing things behind the scenes. Okay, we're going to move on to our Scholarship Committee. I know we got a report from them yesterday. Before they get started, I will set this up. You know, we received the $200,000 from Amazon HQ2. You know, we worked for a couple of years on that one, but that's going to directly to APS students. That's who we're going to identify. Kids in financial need, but we also receive money from local philanthropists and the Britton Foundation. So our scholarship committee has been kind of revamped. Y'all want to give a quick update there? Who's going to brief tonight? Is it Jill, Adora, Karen?
Sure, I'm happy to do it. I've been working with Adora Williams and Karen Nightingale, and our committee has gone through and revised the application for the scholarships, and we're going to get that approved by the executive committee this week, and we're hoping to get it out to the public next week. So we're going to have that up on the new Arlington branch NAACP website. I'm also going to share our email in the chat. If anyone is interested in reading some of the essays and helping us with reviewing the applications, we would love to have you join us. And our regular meetings are the second Wednesday of the month at 7:30. So next month, that's going to be Wednesday, April 14th.
Thank you, Jill, and to the entire committee for your hard work. Education Committee, our second Vice President and Executive Committee Member at Large, Simone Walker, are you on?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. You know, I just want to add to what JD said earlier about the failure to vaccine our population that's been most impacted. I just want to add the point that reverberates into education, because many of our students from the lower economic households also live in those households that have elderly family members, multi-generational households. And so, you know, we need those household members vaccinated, because it impacts our students' health, it impacts their ability to come to school. And so I just wanted to add that it's not just a vaccination issue, it's an education issue as well. Last week, Monday, we had our Push Out documentary. We had over 280 people registered. It was a smashing success. And it's a documentary by Dr. Monique Morris on the criminalization of Black girls in schools. We're also going to try to show that documentary again to a targeted group, which is our school resource officer working group. So we're working to schedule a viewing for them specifically as well. Our branch, our education committee, has joined a couple of forged some partnerships. We are now meeting with all the education committee chairs for Northern Virginia and a little west. So as far as Stafford and Fauquier, Prince William, Fairfax, Loudoun, and so we're all meeting monthly and sharing notes because there's strength in numbers. And when we decide to advocate for an issue, we're going to support each other so that we can be heard. We've also joined the Virginia Joint Coalition for Learning Disabilities and Literacy. And that is a coalition that's comprised of Decoding Dyslexia Virginia, the Virginia Council for Learning Disabilities, the Reading League Virginia, the Virginia branch of the International Dyslexia Association, as well as the Fairfax and Prince William branches have also joined this coalition. We're working on developing or resending out a needs assessment to offer free professional development to our educators and anyone who needs it. From that coalition, we were introduced to a tool developed by the UVA's Equity Center that compares the SOL reading scores on how Black students are taught to read and white students are taught to read, or the impact it has on all of us. And it's an interactive tool that you can plug in your school district, and you can compare across the state where you fall, where your district falls. It is disappointing that Arlington, the Black students in Arlington are performing worse than all other Northern Virginia students in reading, except for Fauquier. It also shows that the gap has widened since 2011. So clearly we have much, much work to do there. And that is all that I have for today. And I'll turn it over to Sharice if she has anything to add.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to add that the Education Committee is also working on setting up a pilot tutoring program for struggling readers, and we are in the process of trying to find teachers who would like to participate in that program. It's a 2-year pilot. Teachers are trained in Orton-Gillingham. And let's see what else. They're trained in Orton-Gillingham. When is the information session? Simone, when's our second one?
Can't believe I forgot that. So we had an information session back in February. I think it was, we didn't have a great turnout, and we were competing with the budget presentation by the superintendent. But the next one is on Monday. So it's Monday the 22nd at 7. And so we'll send information out through the branch with a link to sign up if you're interested in becoming an Orton-Gillingham trained tutor with this program. We're targeting economically disadvantaged students in Title I schools in Arlington for after-school enrichment for 2 years for STEM and structured literacy instruction.
Right, and the teachers that participate will receive a small stipend for their time. And the reason that we're doing this is that there's a phenomenon, and I'll say this really quickly, and then we'll wrap up. There's a phenomenon in Arlington where it appears that white children are just doing far and beyond their Black and Latino counterparts. But what we know is that what families who have the resources are able to do is to provide tutors and take their kids to writing centers and learning centers. So they are filling the gaps that may be present in APS's instruction. And so they do better because their families have the resources to be able to help those gaps be filled. And that's an opportunity that we want to provide also for a small cohort of students to start out, but hopefully the program will be a success and we'll be able to expand it out to more students in the future. And that is critical at this point because we know that students who were already struggling before the pandemic are having a much harder time now.
Is that it for the Education Committee? Thanks. Real quick before we close out, and I'm going to thank Delegate Lopez and Delegate Hope for pushing us past my deadline. But I just want to show you real quick, as of a few days ago, we had 778 members, paid members on the Arlington branch NAACP. I think everyone knows what our goals are, or what our goal is for this year, which is to get to 1,000. The last thing I'll share with you is I attended some national training a few days ago. And I just want to bring this up because it's important for you to know, if you don't know already, what the NAACP is all about. And when they gave this in training last week, we're not here for the title. So I just want you to take a second and look over this, because this is what the NAACP is all about. The NAACP is a protest organization, and the community depends on us to speak out against injustice. When racism and discrimination strikes, a model branch will honor our charge and speak out. The NAACP branch must not concern itself with popularity of the cause. Remember, our job is not to do what's popular and try to make it right, but rather the NAACP must do what is right and try to make it popular. And we're going to take the hit. We've taken the hit a lot. A lot of people just don't know, but we need to be the lightning rod for the community and the constituents. And representing the community means that you, me, not only speak out to give our voice to their concerns, but also stand up and stand in the gap to absorb the anger and pain we all face. I want to leave you with that tonight. It is 8:37 p.m. I'm going to stop recording. The meeting is now adjourned. As many of you know, I will stick around on the call.